Hello and welcome to the Bikes or Death podcast. My name is Patrick and I'm your host. This is a show that talks about bikepacking, adventuring, and the cool people who participate. On this episode, I have back Billy Rice. Again, I'm in his home and I'm very happy to tell you that the audio doesn't suck this time because I figured out how to use my dang equipment, and that's nice. While it's great that I have Billy back on the show and I'm honored that he came back, I am bummed that we are not going to be talking about his experiences on the Tour Divide or his yo-yo with his 16-year-old daughter or any of the experiences that he had on other races or camping or his interactions with wildlife. No. Because this episode, we have to take the time to address what I'm calling the drama divide. Because if you watched or kept up at all with the Tour Divide, you know that even before it started, there was just drama. Drama. Everywhere you look, someone's talking shit. Someone's got an opinion. Anyway, and I really debated on whether or not I wanted to say anything or address it at all, like all the drama that was going on online. I only made one comment. I brought it up on the Sophion podcast, but I said it's his head, it's his decision, referring to his decision not to wear a helmet. And that's the only thing I said, because not only do I hate internet drama, it's just dumb and unproductive. How many of the world's problems have been solved globally, locally, whatever, by a Facebook bitch fest? What the fuck is getting done on Facebook? Nothing. People are wasting time. So while I do have opinions, that is not the forum in which I want to debate ideas. So part of my reason for, I'm sitting here now, I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? Don't just fucking throw this one in the trash, because I really don't want to get into it. But part of the reason I am, or a big part of the reason I am, is because the podcasting platform is one that allows for people to suss out ideas and topics. You're able to actually have a dialogue with someone and see what they're thinking and talk to them. And when you're on the internet, it's just difficult, man. It's just everybody just wants to fight. You come in with your position and you're not there to hear anybody else. You just want to see who can internet shout the loudest. And so, that's not what this episode is. Billy happened to be at the Brush Mountain Lodge during some of the drama, and he happens to live in my hometown, and he happens to be a 6-time Tour Divide veteran with some perspective and an ultra endurance cycling coach. So, and he's actually, he was Inspired to Ride. So if I was going to reach out to anybody about commenting about some of the drama that happened, he's a no-brainer. This guy has real world experience, and like I said, he was there. So he and I talked, and the purpose of this episode was never to be negative, but hopefully to just get some better information, have an actual conversation, and add some context to some of the drama that was surrounding the Tour Divide. All right, well, that's enough of that. I'm going to be switching things up, I think, going forward in regards to me politely begging for money. I'm just like y'all. I listen to podcasts and you hear them beg for money every single time, or advertising or whatever it is. Like everybody's peddling something and you're just like, fast forward, get to the point, right? I get it. And it occurred to me that if I put my ads or my begging for money at the end of the podcast, there's my dog. Hey, Panda. if I do my promo at the end, that I'm going to be hitting my target market. I mean, the people who are listening all the way to the end and are really digging, the episode and the content and everything, those are the ones that are most likely going to like kick a few dollars my way. So, going forward, I think the only thing I'm going to do at the beginning of the podcast is ask for people to rate on iTunes. That's it. That's all I'm going to ask. So just yesterday, Bikes or Death hit number 17 in the outdoor section for all Apple Podcast. 17. And it's consistently ranked in the top 100 of the sports and recreation category on iTunes. So, like all those ratings, they matter. And it's just great to see so many people getting access to the show because y'all are doing such a great job supporting it. So thanks again to everybody who has. We're up to 96 reviews on iTunes. So we are like just touching that 100. All right. Like I said, I'm going to shut up. If you want to find out how you can support the show, listen all the way to the end, and you'll hear me tell you all the wonderful ways. But for now, here's Billy. All right. I'm back here today with Billy Rice for round 2. This is actually the first time I've had a reoccurring guest come back. So
what?
Yeah, this is exciting.
I'm so honored.
We're breaking new grounds, man. Breaking new grounds. Yeah, so I reached out to Billy because in the bikepacking world in the last 30 days, there's been a lot going on between the Tour Divide and the American Trail Race and Trans Am. I mean, there's a lot going on. But specifically with the Tour Divide, we've just seen a lot of what I call drama. And Billy, having been there at the Brush Mountain Lodge and being a 6-time veteran of the event, I thought would be a great person to offer some context to just a lot of stuff going on in the industry. And we're both on the same page. This is not going to be a bitch fest. This is only a opportunity to add more information and context to the divide and maybe what some of those racers were going through. I just think it's good to like combat poor information with better information.
Yeah, I can tell you the internet is a tough place for sharing information.
Right.
It's limited. It was. Yeah, man, it really is, and I just think the nature of social networking in general on the online forum really kind of it almost predisposes people to drama long before they realize that they've fallen into it.
Well, I don't know a whole lot about it, but if you believe that the algorithms and everything with Facebook and Instagram are designed to cause controversy and to get you engaged and hooked, then yeah, it's easy to think that you're going to fall into that trap. And it's just something that I personally don't like. Just my personal opinion, that is not the way that I like to communicate ideas and have conversations about important topics. That, or you look at TV when you get a 20 or 30 second, quick opportunity to just share an idea real quick. And that's all you get is that one opportunity. Complex ideas deserve and require a lot more information and going back and forth with ideas to figure out what's a good idea and what's not a good idea. It's not rocket science.
Right.
So anyway, but before we get into all the drama, what's new with Billy? What's going on in the world? Because I got to be honest, dude, you blew minds up last time. If you haven't listened to episode, it's number 2 episode. The number 2 episode I recorded was with Billy Rice. Go back. It's long, but dude, he goes deep. And I've gotten like so many messages from people who were like, I had to listen to that 3 times, rewind, take notes, write it. You know what I'm saying?
And I hated that interview too, because it was, man, it just scratched the surface.
Yeah,
like,
I know.
So many...
I said that in the intro. It's like we just scratched just nick the surface of everything that's in your brain.
Yeah. So, I don't know. We should start with some of the latest news headlines.
Yeah, let's hear it, man. What's going on?
The science world today. So, a lot of people probably heard, because it made it like every major news network in the world, that the U.S. military as a whole endorsed publicly the keto diet. Right? Like, what's probably the singular most controversial diet ever. If you listen to that episode, I talk a little bit about it. I talk about it all over the internet. I've been in some form of ketosis in and out at different commitment levels over the last 5 years. I get it. And now the military is endorsing it, not just like for their military population as a whole, but specifically U.S. Navy SEALs and frontline combat troops. If we just go real quick, if you go back to the history of the ketogenic diet, it began with kids with epilepsy over the last 100 years or so. So kids that had uncontrolled seizures that were either not responsive to typical medications or the side effects of anti-seizure medications, which are pretty substantial, they didn't like, well, they could just put them on ketogenic diets and their seizures essentially would go away. The U.S. Navy, a long time ago, this is not new, the U.S. Navy did research on U.S. Navy divers, and again, I'd have to go back and look at my dates, but literally like 20 years ago, and they discovered that they could reduce the seizure risk in a U.S. Navy diver if they were on a ketogenic diet. Now, you think about seizures in a diver underwater. It's fatal. All right, it's instant fatal. All right, so seizures underwater is a problem. They put these divers on a ketogenic diet. They quit having seizures because your brain works differently when you're keto. All right, so now we have at least some scientific evidence that suggests that a ketogenic diet will reduce your seizures and it will keep you from having seizures underwater. Well, that's great. Well, that doesn't make it great for the entire military, and that certainly doesn't make it great for U.S. Navy SEALs or frontline troops.
It also doesn't make it the right diet, right?
Right.
Unless you don't want to have a seizure underwater.
Yeah, so the question then, of course, is what changed? Right. So what led the U.S. military as a whole to finally come around into saying, you know what, maybe all of this like glycogen-specific athletic research that we've done over the last 50 years, maybe we didn't know everything. That's a novel concept, right? Like every day I get older, I feel like I know less than I did the day before. And I feel like we should all be like questioning all of our predisposed ideas that we have.
Yeah. Simply because you're getting more information and you're questioning what you knew, and it's just
right. You're like, holy cow!
I've
built my whole career, trained all these athletes one way, and now all of a sudden, we found out there was a better way.
Yeah.
And so essentially, that's exactly what happened. And so, athletes, of course, have been picking up the ketogenic diet over the last 5 or 10 years at very controversial rates, with all of the old school people saying, if your heart rate's over this, you're glycolytic. If your heart rate's less than this, you're oxidative. And but it never really made sense to a lot of us who have been keto for a long time that anything could be that simple. But if you look at any current athletic guidelines as to heart rate, exertion, what fuel source you're using at different heart rates, what you're going to find is that the higher your heart rate, the more glycolytic you are, and you need sugar, you need carbohydrates, you need this or that or the other. You're going to find that over and over. And then if you're doing long, really slow workouts, keto's probably okay for you. That's what you'll find. But then, and myself, most of my athletes are in ketosis at some level or another. I know they're in ketosis, and they're out there growing their VO2 max. They're doing functional threshold intervals. They're doing things that don't really seem to be supported with current guidelines, yet they're doing them.
Right.
So it's totally a cycling forum, but Rich Froning has won the CrossFit Games twice, I think. So top tier CrossFit Games athlete, and recently went public a month or two ago talking about his intermittent fasting diet.
He was keeping that under wraps because he didn't want anyone to know what he was doing?
Oh, no, I don't know that.
Okay.
I don't know when he started. I don't really have the details.
Oh,
but
okay.
I thought that it was fascinating because intermittent fasting, while intermittent fasting is not ketosis, they are mutually exclusive. They are different things. And some people should be keto and intermittent fast. Some people can just intermittent fast. But the metabolic advantage that you get from doing both of those things happen to be very similar. And so, it was really fascinating that this athlete, top tier, has won the CrossFit Games, is out saying, you know what, intermittent fasting is, it's amazing. And it's made him more metabolically flexible, and he's doing it.
Yeah.
Because he has also realized that a lot of the old school information that we used to give, it just doesn't work.
So yeah, like you said, what's the question? What changed? What information came to light that caused the military to be like, okay,
well, that is it. That is it, actually. So once the U.S. Navy divers were on ketogenic diets, a number of very high profile SEALs took up ketogenic diets.
Okay.
And they were going into combat scenarios for days on end in ketogenic diets or fasting. I mean, imagine being able to go in for 2 or 3 days fighting and not have to worry about food.
Right.
I talk about, doing 300 and something miles in a 500-mile bike race with no food. I won that race. No food. Like, your body can change. It's not what you know about your body today. And the military realized, looking at these active warfighters who were doing things never thought possible before and doing them very well. And they came out with a general guideline.
Yeah. So one thing that I've heard is that, I think it makes sense, right? Food slows you down. If you eat a big meal, your body then has to process that food, and it's going to take up resources, and it's going to slow you down and make you a little tired and sluggish. So is that kind of where ketosis comes in? I'm not a doctor, so break that down for me.
Yeah. Okay. So there's a lot of different concepts that you just covered in one sentence.
Oh, perfect.
Right. Yeah. So we would just love to believe that it's easy. So I almost have to draw some boxes here. You could eat carbohydrates and be in ketosis if you intermittent fast.
What? But only like to 50 grams, right?
Unfortunately, it's just not that simple. So you
can tell I've been reading on the internet, right?
Yeah. The reason it's not that simple is because we have to give guidelines to people who are new and who are starting. Most of the guidelines that you will find online are, whether they realize it or not, are aimed and targeted towards what I'll just refer to as standard Americans. You and me growing up in the 80s or whatever, like that person. For somebody that's been in ketosis for years or that's been their lifestyle, man, I could eat a pizza and drink beer tonight and I'll be in ketosis tomorrow. Because I've done the work. I have a different metabolic mechanism at play that I've developed. Your body, if you're not using metabolic sources, your body's not going to waste energy maintaining the ability to do different tasks if it's never asked to do those tasks.
Right. Just lets it go.
Yeah, which is why you can't deadlift 600 pounds. I don't know what you can deadlift. I'm not trying to insult you.
I don't even know what a deadlift is.
Right, okay. So it's like a barbell on the ground. Right, exactly, right? So if you don't train to deadlift constantly, your body's going to lose that ability. And it's no different metabolically.
Right.
So
if you don't use it, you'll lose it.
It's
that's a simple concept.
Right. So the other big myth that we tend to believe as standard Americans is that the food you put in your mouth is just magically absorbed. That if you this kind of attaches itself to the myth of calories in, calories out. As long as you expend more calories than you consumed, you're good to go. Well,
right.
We know that that's crazy, but I can just put this into perspective. So
I didn't know that was crazy.
It's insane. So if you eat, say, 100 calories of food, do you believe that all 100 of those calories were absorbed by your body?
if
you would, right? I mean, just because that's what we're told.
Well, yeah, based on all the information that I have.
Right.
That's
so
what I believe.
That's absolutely not what happens.
Perfect.
Yeah, right. So the numbers don't add up for a lot of different reasons, and the reason it really comes down to your gut health, and this is why. For most of my athletes, we mail their poo away. We analyze everything. Like, we want poo, we want urine. We want to know what they're doing with the food they put in. It's also real interesting because when we look at athletes,
okay. So then you're like, okay, this is what's actually getting absorbed. This is what's getting processed. This is what's getting used, and this is what's just taking up space.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. The biggest waste product I find in athletes?
Carbohydrates.
Protein supplements.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm like, hey, and I'll often ask them, I'll get results back, and I'm like, hey, so what protein supplements are you using? They tell me, whatever. Like, what do you think you're doing with those protein supplements? And they're like, oh, it's the building blocks of,
you're
cells.
Just shitting it out.
Oh, totally. Yeah. I'm like, well, you're actually, oftentimes I find they're using their protein supplements as an energy source. Mm-hmm. They'd be a lot more efficient with butter.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah, I mean, protein is more expensive and harder to utilize as an energy source, generally speaking.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's kind of a whole caveat on its own. But if you intermittent fast long enough, like what Rich Froning is doing, what he's discovering, I'm sure, I don't know the guy, I've not talked to the guy, I've just seen kind of what he's put online, is that he's getting a lot of the metabolic advantage and the adaptations because he's fasting for a good portion of his day that he never had before. So then what's really interesting is if you look at somebody's diet and they eat from the time they wake up in the morning to the time they go to bed, and let's just picture an athlete, maybe old school bodybuilder, so they're consuming, and by the word consuming, putting in their mouth, 5,000 calories a day. It's a lot, right? But for top-end athlete, that's probably what they're eating, right?
I mean, for your average American, they're probably still eating 5,000, but they shouldn't.
Yeah, maybe. So what's interesting, though, is that then that same athlete intermittently fasts, right? So let's say that I take that athlete and I give them a 6-hour eating window, and they're like, man, I was eating 5,000 calories a day. Like, I've done everything I can to consume as many calories in that 6 hours, and I can barely get in 3,000 because I'm full. Well, does that mean they're going to lose 40% of their weight or whatever that is? I don't know. I'm not a mathematician.
I'm not
Well,
either.
Of course not. They're not going to lose 40% of their weight because what you discover is that the body then handles food very differently.
It has a different relationship with food now.
Completely. And so, I have athletes that eat one time a day. They eat far less than they used to. If you look at any of the science, any of the anti-aging science, of course, that it all recommends intermittent fasting because the process of eating and breaking down food releases free radicals. This is essentially what ages you. Now you'll die pretty quick if you never eat.
Well,
it's
everything in moderation, right?
Oh, I don't know about everything.
But I'll edit that out.
But no, you don't have to edit that out. It's the differences in ideas that make the world go round. And we would not have discovered any of this stuff if a few rogue Navy SEALs had not gone out on a limb and been like, dude, I gave up carbs. I eat one time a day. I can fight wars for 3 or 4 days. I never have to worry about food at the peak of their performance. And now it's translating across all kinds of different fields.
The part that really resonates with me, I've been doing intermittent fasting for I think about 6 months, and I'm not that smart, but I rely on people like you that are smarter than I am and have more information and better information. I'm like, okay, well, I'll do that. But if you picture like a hunter or gatherer who is out and hunting all day or fishing all day or whatever it is, and they maybe eat a meal a day, maybe they eat a meal every other day, but they're expending a lot of energy on a daily basis, right? So it just makes sense to me that humans are very capable of putting in big efforts and expending a lot of energy and not requiring a lot of food to survive,
right?
Or even to thrive.
Yeah, I completely agree.
That's my dummied down way to understand it.
But it's true though. It is so true. And every time we try to push our limits or we try to learn something new or challenge the status quo, we often come up with something really big in return. And right now we had a whole bunch of athletes, some Navy SEALs, some triathletes of old, and even some weightlifters now that all kind of push the status quo as to what to eat, how to eat, when to eat. They've challenged everything they thought they knew.
Right.
And they're bigger, stronger, and faster for it.
Yep.
So it's pretty amazing.
Well, speaking of challenging, can we switch to the people who are challenging some of the stuff on the Tour Divide?
Yeah.
Was that a professional segue or what?
I like it. I like it.
Well,
but
all
it's
right.
important. It is important. I like it. I like to challenge.
Differences of opinion are good. It's a competition of ideas where you get the best idea. So, or whatever it is that you're dealing with, whatever the situation may be. So, first of all, to set it up, all I know is that you were at the Brush Mountain Lodge because of an ice machine that went down. I know there's some weird story on how you found yourself in the BML. So why don't you set that?
Yeah, I could tell. Yeah, I mean, I can tell my story for sure.
Ahead.
So I'll honestly, so I organized the American Trail Race. I use the term loosely. Like, I am no way as involved in the American Trail as Matthew is with the Tour Divide. I know a lot of people think Matthew isn't very. I don't know really how to describe it. Matthew is. I know Matthew really well, and I love the guy.
Yeah.
Man, I owe the guy so much. I know a lot of people, I think, just maybe wish they saw more of him, right? But I also totally, I don't know, he's way more involved with what happens on the Tour Divide than I am with the American Trail, just to be fair, right? So going into all of this, I was, dealing with a little bit of the American Trail stuff to get those guys out. But once they leave, they're on their own, honestly. Like, don't call me.
You're not going to come save them.
Don't call me. Yeah. Well, that's funny that you said that. We'll come back to that.
Okay.
So I really hadn't been online, hadn't really been paying any attention. The only drama surrounding the Tour Divide, of course, that I had heard anything about was a little bit about Lael making a movie and the film crew. But I don't know. Not my deal, not my monkey, not my football. I'm not racing.
Yeah.
Not my just not my focus. I have a little mining claim in Salida. I was up there with my kid, vacationing. Like, so what we do, it's on the Divide route. Every racer rode by our little mining claim driveway if they're looking. Cool. Yeah, it's totally. And Kirsten at the lodge is one of my fewest and best friends in the entire world. There's nearly 200 racers or whatever coming down from Banff. Going through Montana, like almost a week into the race, only like 6 had dropped or something. It was, don't quote me on that, but it was some unbelievably low number. And then in the middle of that, her ice machine broke. So if you had ice at the Brush Mountain Lodge this summer, you can thank the efforts of Will, my son, and I. So yeah, it's not too far. We went to Craig the same morning that Sophian and Josh Cato were due to make it in. We went to Craig or Hayden or wherever the ice machine was up there in one of those little towns. And we picked this thing up and off we go to the lodge with my little baby Airstream in tow, which makes things more complicated as to what we found. But I have a Toyota 4Runner. Like, the thing will go almost anywhere.
Yeah.
And so we go up there, we unload, we help her, get the ice machine going and whatnot. And, shortly later, Sophian rides in. And looks amazing. Looks like a typical pointy end of the race, tired, but happy.
He seemed like he was in good spirits the whole time.
Yeah. I don't know how long he was there. He wasn't there very long. I offered to make him a pizza because that's what I'm a terrible pizza chef on Kirsten's pizza oven, but I can I don't know. I mess up a lot of pizzas. Dude, the pizza oven's hard to drive. I'll tell you. So, but he was only there for a few minutes. Very focused, and off he went.
Yeah.
Now, to get to the lodge that morning, in my 4Runner and Airstream, before Sophion got there, we didn't take the normal Tour Divide road, the road that the riders would race coming from Wyoming. We should have. That road's about 13 miles. It's up a hill, but it's a pretty well-traveled road. It's dirt, but they put stuff on it to try to make it hard. My son and I, because I just do this because I'm like, oh, look, an adventure. Let's go this way. Mm-hmm. We towed my Airstream across from the highway from Craig, which is quite a bit longer, but I thought it'd be fun. Almost lost my trailer several times. Just unbelievable mud,
like
snow.
Off a cliff, or because it was stuck in the mud and you
There were times we were going down hills, I could see it sideways in my rearview mirror, and then trying to pull it up the hills. Like the roads were a disaster, and I really had no idea that it was that bad in there. So Sophion gets there, he leaves. Josh Cato comes in hour or so later.
All right.
Also amazing spirits. To me, honestly, he didn't even look like he was racing. He looked like he was just out having a grand old time.
He's just at home.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally at peace, totally at home. And he stayed for quite a bit longer. I think we made him a pizza and he chilled, but then off he went.
Yeah.
So these two guys left on their bikes. Like, that's kind of an important distinction. Because as I've told this story, it's important, I think, to understand that there were some pretty major differences between the way these different groups of riders arrived at the lodge and the way they left the lodge.
Okay.
So off they go. There were also, shortly right around them, some tourists showed up. I don't know how many. They were super cool. Like a rectal surgeon, and like, I don't know, they were so cool, and they showed up, and there were some northbound folks as well that had showed up at some point, but all before like these guys left.
Okay.
Because that's an important distinction, because there were all these insane rumors about, well, all these northbounders came through, all these people were asleep. Like, it just didn't happen. Like, that's crazy. So that evening, Chris showed up. I don't know, 7 o'clock or so. I don't know. Don't quote me on the time. But, and then was it Nate and Steven, I think. They all showed up and slept there. I talked to Chris for a while, who I'd never met. I think he's one of the coolest people that I've ever met. And so
I know he can dance pretty well.
Can
he? See his dance moves?
No.
Yeah.
I'm jealous. So we talked for a while. I was just really captivated, kind of listening to him. He said he was going to sleep 4 hours and be on his way. Typical kind of racer, thing. Like, cool. So we all went to bed, essentially, at that point. And the next morning, I wake up and I see Chris. I'm like, dude, it's like, what happened to 4 hours? He's like, well, I was sleeping so good, like, so now I'm on my way. And so, he got like 10 hours of sleep.
That Brushy Mountain, man, it's a trap.
Yeah, well, it is, but it's part of it. It's
a good trap.
I think it's a good trap, but we're gonna have to come back to that.
Yeah, I know,
because you just would not believe the stuff that I have heard and gotten. But
yeah,
I'll finish this. Please. My perception of the way this all unfolded, and so at that point, Chris is getting ready to go. I think it was Nate and Steve are getting ready to go. That's their names, right? I'm pretty sure. And we're kind of looking at the dots, and the dots don't really make sense. Josh Cato and Sofjan had left nearly 12 hours before.
Right.
It's like an 8-hour ride to Steamboat, 6 hours maybe. Like, it's not 12.
Right.
And not only that, but Josh is now way ahead of Sofjan, and none of this makes any sense to me as a racer. I'm like, yeah, and I've learned this. Anytime you think track leaders is wrong, it's never wrong. And so I'm like, man, track leaders isn't working. Like, it's totally. And so then it took me a minute, and I was like, oh, wait.
No, Sofjan is lost.
Something's wrong.
Yeah. And
I opened Sofjan's dot, and that's when I realized he had backtracked walking a very long way.
Yeah.
And immediately recognized that something was wrong. Kirsten was standing next to me. We both immediately recognized that this is a very strong racer. Something's wrong. And so I got my 4Runner, and I drove up the hill to get him. I know Sofjan.
Yeah.
I've raced with him. I had not communicated with him, and I don't know, I probably hadn't communicated with him in a year, not before the race, not during the race, not that morning. But I knew something. I know the area, I know the road. I knew something bad had happened.
No, you were tingling on the inside, and you felt like you might need to go.
Yeah, I got a lot of criticism. I was actually told by what we would guess maybe we would consider, I don't know, older race wise men of sorts, that I actually interfered with the flow of the race. I told them I would do it again.
Yeah.
Like, welcome to the new world. I don't know what to tell you. And so I drove up there in my 4Runner that has all the electronic 4-wheel drive mud stuff. Barely made it up. And realized it had not rained yet. Like, this is just all from the day before. I find him. He looks like a messed up racer. Not the same Sofjan that I'd seen the day before.
Yeah.
Roll my window down. He was like, oh my God, like, I'm glad to see you. I'm like, are you out? He's like, oh yeah. He's like, I'm out. I'm like, okay, get in. Like, You're done. Okay, cool. And so at that point, he jumps in the car. I load his bike up, and he, kind of proceeds to tell me about his night, and not in a complaining way at all. This is a very strong racer, and he's very self-aware.
Yeah.
When
I talked to him, for the podcast, and to me, it just seemed like he's a very experienced racer, like you said, but he wasn't experienced with that.
In the Rocky Mountains?
Yeah. That he didn't have experience there.
Right.
And so to be criticized.
Oh, dude, it's unbelievable. People were saying stuff like, oh, well, if he took a jacket, or if he took this, or if he took, I'm sorry. If I take the right jacket, can I climb Mount Everest? No. You're talking, European racers coming into he knows what he does and doesn't know. And
yes.
And if a racer wants to take a risk, man, that's like what life is about. Our 500-mile race that we organized here in Texas, we had almost 40 people start last year. 8 finished. 8.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it was a rough year. Cold
people
and wet.
took risks.
Yeah.
Everybody in the middle went out with their same Texas. The only people that finished were like the 4 guys from like Michigan and Missouri.
Yeah,
and the 4 people in the back that had tents and 20-degree sleeping bags.
Yeah.
No, you're right. It's just crazy.
Well, you make a good point. It's each individual's athletes. It's their race, and they get to determine the risks that they want to take, and they also get to determine when they're in a situation they're not comfortable with, they don't feel good about for whatever reason, and they throw in the towel. That is their decision to make.
Oh my God, absolutely. And I would like to talk about, we'll talk about dropping here shortly, because I think that's an important philosophical point. But as a coach, I never provide gear lists to my athletes. Like, if you want Invictus Cycling to teach you to race the Tour Divide, cool. Like, I'll make you stronger. I'll make you more comfortable. I can't tell an athlete to use this sleep system versus that sleep system because they're all different. I'm happy to provide
Plus, every
wisdom.
human is different. Are you saying all the people are different, all the equipment is different?
People.
Yes, that's
People.
Yeah.
People are different. Their
There is
experience
no
level
one
is different.
size fits all whenever it comes to equipment. There's only one way to figure that out, and that's to just test it out.
And if you believe that, then it becomes crazy to me for people to criticize somebody for taking a whatever. I mean, I'm just using the jacket example because it's absurd, but that's where we were at.
Yeah, that's where we're
as a community. And okay, so we start driving back to the Brush Mountain Lodge. I'm telling you, like, it's a mess. Like, I don't know if you're familiar with the road. There's like a cliff on one side. It's like, I don't know, maybe 100 feet down to the creek, river-ish thing. At one point, I'm like half off the road. We're sliding sideways. I'm like, oh my God, I've rescued him and now I'm going to kill him. Yeah. And so, like, we're trying to get back onto the road and, like, it just won't go back onto the road. And it finally pops back onto the road. And I just remember him sitting there, like, half asleep. And he's like, good job. I was like, oh my God, yeah, we're totally going to die.
Yeah.
And so we continue on a little ways. And that's when I snapped that picture of Chris. It's like my favorite picture of him. Carrying his bike on his shoulder,
I know that.
walking
picture.
up the road.
Yeah.
And the road was wet. The road was not, in my opinion, what it was about to become. And so I get Sophiane back to the lodge. He goes to bed. I never see him again the entire day. So at that point now, we have Josh Cato, who's way up on the pass walking. We have Chris and Nate and Steven, 3 racers traveling southbound up the road, not the pass. It's an important distinction. The pass with the snow is like 20 miles south of the Brush Mountain Lodge. And I saw a lot of people talk about, these guys didn't want to go over the pass. Well, the pass was never the problem. The snow on that pass was never the problem. Like, the racers never saw it, during this time. It's like 20 miles away. Like, it's crazy. I'm like, we're like, people aren't even talking about the right problem. There's also a group of tourists traveling around those guys, the surgeon and whatnot, who also left at about the same time. And they were going southbound. Because the account that kind of kept coming back to the internet is, well, these tourists went over. Well, they all left before what I would consider it got bad. So now all these guys are gone. I don't have times in front of me. I don't know. It's kind of irrelevant, honestly, to the whole conversation. Several hours later, Josh Ibbett shows up to the lodge. And you would think things at this point, everything's amazing. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I have to back up. So there's a gap now between all these guys leaving and Josh Ibbett, who's next, and Lael, who's coming in after Josh. I didn't remember the times in my head, but I know that I laid down in my Airstream and I took a nap. So however long that was. Going back and looking at track leaders, it looks like it was about 2 hours. And it rained the entire time. If you've ever taken a nap in an Airstream while it's raining, you know how long it's raining. It's amazing.
Ting, ting, ting,
dude, it's amazing. Right? So I have this little older, like, tiny Airstream thing. But anyway, when I got out, things had dramatically changed. I had barely made it back to the Brush Mountain Lodge down the hill in my 4Runner the first time. And now at this point, going anywhere north on the road was, I would not have driven it again.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just no way. It's now overcast, it's misty, it's rainy. Like, it's really kind of at a point. I've never seen the Brush Mountain Lodge like this. And I've been there a bunch.
Yeah.
Like, and I've never seen this level of funness. I don't know how else to describe it.
Type 2 fun.
Yeah, it is definitely. I don't know. We may be pushing type 3. I'm not sure. But so anyway, at this point, Josh shows up, and he wasn't there real long. I mean, he knew Lael was coming. Didn't really think a whole lot of it. I mean, he ate and whatever and took off up the road.
Yeah, you're in go mode.
Yeah. Lael shows up a little bit later. Same kind of thing. Typical Lael. Smiling, happy, just having a good time. We chit-chatted a bit. Off the road, up the road she went. Mm-hmm. Didn't think anything of it. You know, I really, nothing at this point. Yeah. So I guess this is when it started.
Okay.
They got, you can look at their dots, dude. Like, I don't know. I don't even think it's a quarter of a mile if you look at their dots.
Mm-hmm.
And that storm that went through dramatically changed everything. So if you know anything about my tandem run on the Divide, I did in 2016 with my daughter.
Yeah.
2015.
Okay.
She was 16.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Well, are you going to tell them what you did? You should at
Which
least,
part?
Well, just that you rode north to south solo, right? And then you picked up your daughter in Antelope Wells.
South to north. I went northbound solo.
Okay, northbound.
Yeah.
And you met your daughter in Banff, and y'all rode tandem back down to Antelope Wells.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is the second time I've yo-yoed the route.
Right.
Right? So I understand the route. And I'll tell you, go northbound in May, and you'll understand the snow. Which is really why I think I started getting pretty defensive when people started talking about snow on the pass. I'm like, man, that's the least of their problems.
Right.
That is not the issue at hand. So I know a thing or two about mud. If you go back, Team Rice Burner is our Facebook page. It's still up. You just go to the New Mexico section and enjoy the videos. We walked I don't know, a lot
From all the mud.
New Mexico, dragging a tandem that we couldn't carry.
Yeah.
So I get it. I have a real appreciation for what these athletes are up against. And so not very long. Now Lael and Josh have gone. I don't really think anything about it. Kind of looking at dots. How many pizzas do we need to make? Kind of making a plan. And the next thing I know, they're back. And I'm like, and they're back together. I'm like,
Uh-oh.
what in the world? And they're destroyed. It's hard to describe what I was looking at, and so
when you say destroyed, just their spirits were down, or their bikes were destroyed.
They were really rethinking life at this point.
Yeah,
as far as strategy and motivation and momentum, and not in a bad way. My strategy in these long distance events, I never try to be, I don't want to use the word optimistic, but you got to go with the flow, right?
Yeah.
And so you leave and you think, all right, 6 or 8 hours, I'll be in, I'll be in Steamboat. But of course they knew that Josh, they knew Sophie Ann had dropped. They knew Josh was taking what did it take him? 18 hours, I think? 16 hours?
I don't remember.
Long time, right? It's going to be more than a sandwich. And so they were, at this point, they're rethinking, what do we do?
Yeah.
Both of them, very experienced, very talented racers, saying, there's no way, this is dumb. Okay, cool, right? Few minutes later, Evan and Kai show up. First time I had met either of them. Honestly, two of my most favorite people in the entire world at this point, just from our short interaction. And they kind of come in the same way, and they're like, "Dude, we'll take a sandwich to go. We're out of here." Right? Brief conversation. You might need more than a sandwich, but whatever. So at this point, people are now realizing what the real challenge that now lays ahead of them. What none of them understand, because they weren't there the entire time, is that the condition of the route leaving the lodge changed due to a storm that went through. Yeah, maybe it wasn't a hurricane, maybe it wasn't whatever, but my perspective, looking at this, looking at what the racers faced who left that morning versus what Lael and Josh and Evan and Kai were trying to face, was is a completely different road. And so you didn't need to travel far. If you're familiar with that area, everybody's kind of familiar with the little iconic turn out of the Brush Mountain Lodge. Kirsten always takes pictures of everybody. Where that picture ends, you go just around that corner and you drop into this low area. And that had just become one section of what was about to turn into potentially like a 20-mile slog of nothing different. And it doesn't get better. I couldn't say that when I was there, but it doesn't get better. Like, I've walked that road.
Yeah.
In a divide. I heard some of the real old school divide folks saying like, oh, well, they put mag chloride on the road at the park. And I'm just like, man, that's like 10 miles or something, right? Like, and so I knew we had something special that was about to occur. But again, like, not my race, not really.
You're just sitting there watching.
Yeah.
Documenting.
And at that point, like, I think I was texting my parents and I'm like, no, like, we're totally stuck. Like, I don't know when we're coming home. Like, I'm not dragging my trailer back down the hill. Like it's changed and it's overcast. Like, it's not drying out. Like, it's almost kind of getting worse. So then more and more and more people, of course, start showing up, right? And kind of taking on this bizarre environment of, like, what in the world just happened?
You have some of the top adventure or endurance athletes in the world all in one place. Yeah. And they're stuck there.
Right. And so, that kind of led me to, like, another, criticism that I often saw was, well, those other racers didn't even try to go up the road. Like, I'm telling you, it's absurd. Like, you could look from the porch. Like, if there's flooding outside your house, like, do you have to go swim in it to know that you can't cross it?
Yeah.
Like, it became right. So I started seeing, maybe it was that evening, definitely the next morning. Oh no, we should continue. Let me. Okay. So I'm now at this point, I'm getting ice and making pizzas, right? Like, doing my part as the best little waiter that I can. And I start hearing their plan, which I did not interfere in. I really try not.
Yeah.
Right? You try not to interfere. It's their deal. It's their race. I'm not. Right? Like, it's just not my problem.
You're making pizzas.
And they're not very good. They're not Kirsten level pizzas, I can tell you that. But I try. And their plan is to wake up at whatever time. It was like, I think they wanted to say like 3 o'clock in the morning or something. And they were hoping that the road would, like, freeze. It sounds so logical, right? In my head, I'm like, oh my God, that's the worst. This is the worst idea ever. But it's not my deal. It's not my deal.
Honestly, from being from Texas, I don't even have an opinion on snow or freezing or anything.
And Lael's from freaking
Alaska.
Alaska. She would know. Okay, so, right. But it's summer in Colorado, right? And this happens, this exact thing. I saw a great comment. I think it was Jill Homer. She's like, this happens in Alaska all the time. Like, in all the races. Like, the racers always get stuck. And they wait for conditions to freeze so they don't have to push through the snow. They can ride on top of it. Like, that seems like a brilliant idea. I just knew it was a bad idea because more storms were coming. Like, if you have not followed the weather in Colorado this year, like, it's unbelievable. And, so anyway, that was, I guess, that was the plan. Of course, about 11 o'clock at night, dude, it just started pouring. Pouring. Like, not like a little bit pouring, like a lot of it pouring.
Yeah.
And by 3 a.m., it was snowing. And by the time the sun came up, there was 4 or 6 inches of snow everywhere. The snow, again, not really being the issues. It made the pictures look nice. But, dude, the conditions were worse than they were the day before. And that's when, I mean, we had nothing else to do, right? So now I'm like surfing Facebook a little bit, which I don't do very often. And I'm seeing all these, like, just, to me, just, I wouldn't say crazy comments, but definitely comments from people who just, I don't even judge the perspective, but they weren't accurate. You know, that's kind of when I started seeing the whole, oh, well, you know, like, these people got through, like, what's happening there? Like, this is great, like, all this stuff, right?
Right.
And so then, I took it upon myself and made a little video. I think it's on my Facebook page.
Yeah. Yeah, it was cool. You were up there, like, documenting people coming in, people leaving, and then coming back, and, you know.
Yeah, definitely not attempting to generate drama, right? But it kind of goes back to this whole...
It was interesting. I mean, that was
what
kind of like
thought. Yeah.
That whenever you were doing it, that's what I was like, this is cool. You know, I mean, you have somebody up there who's familiar with the racers, familiar with the route, adding, you know, some outside perspective as to what's going on. And I like that as a dot watcher and a fan of the sport. I like it whenever I can go on social media and kind of get some more context and like, all right, what's going on out there?
And we have to talk about that at the end of this.
Okay.
The dot watching spectator aspect.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's changing. I can tell you that my motivation in doing that is that I know a lot of these racers. I have tremendous respect for every single one of them that was there.
Period.
And what I saw developing online was not an accurate reflection of the people that I saw at the lodge.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So I just wanted to tell a brief story.
For people who didn't read that Facebook post that you made, what was it like? What were they talking about? What was the vibe?
Well, I mean, the video basically kind of just told the story that, like I just told, but has all of their smiling faces and waving, and of course racers sleeping everywhere. I mean, the floor, the couches, if they could hang from the rafters, people were everywhere. I asked Kirsten at one point, like, what's the record for like the number
of people?
By far, I think this is a record for the number of racers, but like there are just people everywhere.
Yeah.
And the vibe was just bizarre. And not in a negative way, just everybody was kind of like it. To me, this is Billy Rice's perspective. Everybody was just kind of in this, what in the world is happening? Like, it's a very difficult thing to go from race mental mode to out of race mode. But people were amazing there. Like, everybody was cool. Like, everybody was nice. Dude, people were trying to make like backpacks to haul their bikes, like as Arizona Trail style.
Yeah.
Like, dude, like people were like making backpacks out of like inner tubes and stuff, and like
that's awesome.
They had nothing else to do. They were stuck. Like, they weren't like none of them wanted to be there. Like I've said that so many times, but
I think that's the important thing to realize is that, I mean, all of those people spent so much time, energy, money, everything else so that they could race the divide and be in the position at the front of the race. And then the idea that they're just going to take a nap and tap out just because there was a little bit of snow is crazy to me.
It really was.
And that was a really good perspective that you were able to share because you were there, is like, none of these guys want to be here right now. They're not having fun, not taking a vacation. They all want to be out there racing and riding their bikes right now.
Yeah. And then, in my attempt to describe this to people, I posted a picture. me, Billy Rice, posted a picture of an e-bike.
Mm-hmm.
Man, if you could just do some things over, right? This e-bike was, from my perspective, was never ridden or touched by a racer, number one, right? Which would, I don't know. Anyway, it just wasn't. At some point in all of this, Lael's film crew showed up. I really don't care. Like, not my problem. I'm not racing. Not really. They were super cool. Like, I don't. What else are they gonna do? Sleep on the side of the road?
Right.
Like, we're all humans first, right?
Yeah.
And so they were filming. Like, they were, flying drones down the road. They were filming sunsets or whatever. The sun did finally come out. They were doing what film crews do. I got criticism from one older racer because I posted a picture of Chris, the one carrying his bike. Mm-hmm. Because that somehow gave an advantage to other people that they would understand that the road was wet. I'm like, what? To the racers in Montana? Like, that's absurd, right? Like, I mean, people are posting pictures all the time, number one. And number two, who cares what the weather's like 2 states down from me?
This is
silly.
That's like saying Chris, who's on the route, can't post. I mean, everybody's posting pictures.
It literally happened. Yeah, so my frustration level was just kind of growing and growing and growing. And so in an attempt to explain what these elite, amazing people were facing, I showed a picture of this e-bike after what literally, I don't know, it was a,
and for
in
clarification,
one post,
the e-bike was for the film crew.
Yeah, the film crew.
Right.
It was a genius idea.
Yeah.
You ever ridden an e-bike?
I have not.
All right, so
But if I was on a film crew with 50 pounds of gear and I was trying to hop back and forth and go everywhere, I would ride. It
Dude,
makes sense.
After it dried out a little, I rode it.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Was that your first time?
Dude, first time. Giggled like a schoolgirl. Like, I couldn't. It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think I would own one necessarily.
Not yet. You're not 80 yet, but
oh my God.
One day.
Dude. Anyway. Yeah, just very well intentioned. Just trying to describe what the conditions were like.
Yeah.
And this bike did not travel very far. I had like 2 conflicting posts. I think in one post I said like a quarter of a mile. I don't really know how far it went. I don't think it was a quarter of a mile. I think that was really an over-exaggeration. Mm-hmm. Like I said, if you just go past that little turn in the Brush Mountain Lodge, like, you're in it.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the internet kind of exploded. Like, I mean, people were accusing the film crew of doing recon.
Yeah.
Like, I was just like, what has our sport become? I mean, I was really just like,
sorry.
It
started that way. That's the exact question that I started asking as soon as Rue made a post about all the rules that they were going to follow, because even before the race began, people were criticizing to have a film crew on the Divide route, and so that it's like, what is going on right now?
So I didn't know. So I kind of went into this with my ice machine a bit unaware.
Yeah.
The only thing that I saw was a Facebook post that had occurred several months before, that basically said something along the lines of, Lael's going to have a film crew. Is it against the rules? Discuss.
Yes.
Which I thought was about the most non-productive thing that I've ever seen in my life. Stayed out of it. People were tagging me and stuff on it. Like, I don't even, if I get on Facebook once a week, once every other week, maybe, that's probably my limit at this point, because life's too short.
Yeah, exactly.
And that had bothered me, because it just didn't seem to be the respect as humans that we should probably give each other. Now, to be fair, because people are like, well, is it right? Is it wrong? Is it whatever? Is a film crew support?
See,
should we have that discussion?
Well,
I will.
I'm happy to have that discussion, but I think it sucks that we even have to, because it just speaks to like this American society where everybody's litigious, where it's like, okay, here are the rules. All right, now we have to define support.
Yeah.
And we're going to go, and who's the committee that's going to determine what is support and what isn't support?
So I think we have to go back in history just a little bit. Right?
Go right ahead.
Okay, so if you go to old school, before my time, I mean, racers went no cell phone, got on payphones, called 1-800 number, and that's how you track the race.
Mm-hmm.
Right? All the way, Joe Polk. Then, I mean, those days of, that's how you did it.
Right.
So if that's the definition of no support, then it just becomes this big, massive gray area.
Yeah. What about all that equipment that you're bringing with you?
Well, what if I get on Facebook?
Yeah. What
if I get on Facebook and you tell me, "Good job, Billy. Keep going. You're doing great."
Or your friend texts you and says, "Hey, you're just past somebody, or you're catching up to somebody," or whatever it is.
Because all of that happens now.
All of that happens.
All of that happens. Yeah. So clearly, this gray area could just go forever.
Exactly.
So in my head, just Billy Rice's world is a film crew following me to make a movie about me support. Because I'll just put my opinion out there for half a second. No, I don't think it's support.
Yeah.
This is when everybody blows up. But, however, the problem is a race. And the problem for the other racers has nothing to do with the crew being a film crew. The problem is 3 or 4 individuals following one particular racer. And in the world that we live in, especially as it gets bigger and more competitive, the potential for those people supporting a racer under the guise of a film crew, of course, is a major problem.
Right.
That's the way it works in my own head. It has nothing to do with the camera. It has nothing to do with filming. It has nothing to do with the e-bikes. But if you're trying to compare the race of today with the race of, say, 2010 or before, the film crew, or I don't even like to use the word film at this point because I think it's irrelevant, the crew creates a problem. If we're trying to maintain the integrity of what was. I don't know. Is that fair?
I don't know. Is it? I
don't know.
I mean, you can't. I
I'll tell you. So I organize. I organize Route 66, which we only did once. We're not doing it again. I organize the American Trail. I organize the Grand Gravel 500. We took the visitation rule out. It's not there. I don't care I don't care who visits you.
Just to make it.
Dude, it's impossible.
Just to take away the complication.
Yeah. You can't, it's impossible to enforce. And it's just, everybody has to be out there for their own reason. I can't define like what your reason is or what my reason is or what anybody else's reason for being out there. But do you talk about opening a nightmare trying to enforce that?
Well, we can see right now. I mean, that's what we're talking about is this issue.
Yeah, in the old school races, definitely had more of the time trial aspect. It was almost like it was a collection of individual time trials. You, me, everybody, we're going to start together. The real race was against yourself. And I might use your position in the race to motivate me to do a little more. But it had this very almost gentleman feel about my struggle was mine, your struggle was yours, and whether you finished in 15 days or 30 days, you fought your fight. When you put 200 people out there and the culture starts shifting and changing, this year's Tour Divide reminded me more of the Tour de France than the Tour Divide.
Yeah, next we're going to... I mean, I heard people accusing Sofiane of doping and of having a motor on his bike. So if you want to say Tour Divide, yeah.
We're there, right?
We are there. We are in a Tour Divide culture now where people are throwing around accusations that are completely
And for what, right?
no
yeah.
prize.
And that's
no one's going to be
really-
there most likely at the end except for a family member to pick you up and take you somewhere.
Yeah, and so when I saw like websites calling the Brush Mountain Lodge event, I don't know what the Vortex, whatever. When I saw them calling it a staycation, like I lost it. Like my blood pressure went through the roof because I know these people. I've raced with many of these people. I saw them at the Brush Mountain Lodge. I know what they were up against. And then it was being, like, by a journalist website labeling it as a staycation. Like, what was the point? Like, to generate drama for
your advertisers,
followers, and and I couldn't handle it. Now,
gotta
to
get
be
those
fair,
clicks.
that's my
gotta
bias.
Get clicking,
though, right? Like that's my bias, and I think that's the bias that maybe a lot of old school divide folks have, because they want that old school divide feel.
Yeah.
We just now happen to be at this crossroads, where it's changing, and you'll never get it back, right? Like unless you're going to tell people you can't take cell phones and you got to call, Joe Polk's answering machine. I love Joe, but he's going to need a bigger inbox. I don't think we're going to get back to that as the core of the divide.
Right.
And so for events like the divide to continue, I think we're going to have to embrace what's really happening and occurring. And it's just different, and different's okay.
So going back to having a film crew, for me sitting here today, I wouldn't be sitting here today probably if it wasn't for Ride the Divide.
Right.
And I would like to think that I'm trying to do something positive to contribute to the community, but I'm here because a guy went out and filmed a bunch of people racing the divide,
right?
And it influenced a huge movement. And what we're dealing with now, I think, is in large part due to that film that really informed and educated people about this really cool route and the amazing people that were participating and taking place in that event. And I look at Lael, and the part that's hard for me to swallow is whenever I interviewed her prior to the divide. I knew that they were going to be filming it. I thought it was great. And my thought was, that's what I would like to see in the sport. I would love to be there, quote unquote, be there. I'd like to see how hard it really is. I'd like to see the emotion and the challenges and the weather and everything. I want to see a film about that. And I never once considered it, cheating or anything like that. But as it like unfolded and all the drama started to come out, what I thought about it, and I'd be curious to get your opinion, is hasn't Lael earned our respect? I mean,
right?
Hasn't she ridden all over Arkansas and all over, soloed everywhere? I'd be interested to make an argument that a film crew could be distracting to what she was trying to actually accomplish.
I have so many thoughts.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, but the point is like, I can be contrarian and say, well, it could be a distraction. Maybe she races better when she's out there in her own and she's not distracted by having to worry about or thinking about the fact that there's a fucking camera there. Maybe, but the point is like, we don't know. I don't know what helps her and what doesn't help her and all that. Right. But I do respect Lael. And I think as a community, we should give her the respect that not she deserves, but she has earned it through the actions and the accomplishments that she has.
I totally agree.
Hit me with it.
Yeah. So, I love how to describe this. So, in real life, I manage an air medical helicopter company in Texas. Very, very, very high performing group of people in the most high risk, high demand environment ever, right? And so a big part of my day-to-day job is analyzing events and trying to make sure that if we have errors or mistakes, even or either in patient care or in aviation, that we do better tomorrow. Because if we don't, people die, right? So it's a very high risk environment that really leads to a lot of very philosophical and very deep-rooted conversations between myself and my crews to understand human performance. And I think that translates in a lot of ways when I look at high-performance racers and decisions that they make. Mm-hmm. When people make a decision, they always think it's the right decision when they make it.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. So as I started analyzing, well, go back a bit. In 2013, Mike Hall caught Craig Stapler on the Tour Divide. Mike was 60 miles behind Craig, and that was southern Wyoming or something. Mike, of course, caught Craig, and then a day or two later, after Union Pass or Pinedale, Craig dropped from the Divide. To go back a year before, Craig got second place on the Tour Divide in 2012 due to a broken pedal on the way in to the border. And I talked about that a bit, kind of from that perspective of how we all make decisions with unbelievable respect. And this will clearly tie back to Lael. When someone goes into a race environment and their motivation is winning, or their motivation is some particular time, and the ability to do that goes away, they'll never achieve that goal for whatever reason. Of course, their motivation to be out there drops.
Yeah.
So one of the comments I saw several times regarding Lael's drop from the Divide, and I don't speak for Lael, just Billy opinion, right? Okay. Was, she knew she wasn't going to break her record or win or whatever, so she dropped. Maybe. I mean, who cares? It's not your problem.
Who cares?
Right? That's my thought. It's
her race. Yeah. I'll go back to what I said at the very beginning. It is her race. It's Sophion's race. They get to choose how they get to want to tackle that challenge. We all do.
Yeah.
Some of us take 30 days. Some of us take 14 days. But at the end of the day, that's what just drives me crazy is you got all these people that are just throwing around just shit talking.
Yeah.
And it's like you don't know.
Yeah. And so I think when I analyzed, because I love to analyze, I don't know, just people in general. I mean, I don't know. It's what I do for a living almost, right? So when I'm looking at Lael and her decision, just watching her interaction with people, listening to conversations at the lodge, and I really didn't fully understand even what was occurring until long after I left the Brush Mountain Lodge, went back to Salida, got a lot of other perspectives, heard a lot of the earlier drama. Well, man, no wonder she dropped. Nobody got more hate, right, thrown their way in this
starting 2 weeks before the TD and just all the way through is just nothing.
I don't think I would have lasted as long as she did.
I feel so bad for her.
It's like you can have whatever opinion you want of the film crew. Sure. And I've given mine, right? But it's like, do you think she even would have started that project? What was the motivation for the project?
I don't know.
Knowing Lael and her history, just take a guess. You're guessing. This is your...
Is to inspire other people to ride bikes.
Amen. I have no doubt that I have no doubt.
Lael to me, from knowing her, interviewing with her, and watching her career, just simply loves to ride bikes, and her passion projects that she does are about getting people on their bike and riding bikes.
So,
which is a message that is the only message that as cyclists we should be promoting. And the fact that we're backbiting and talking shit about each other is what is super disappointing. Like, we are all cyclists.
So if I go back to everybody thinks they're making a good decision when they make it.
Okay, yeah.
Like, if she knew all of this drama was going to lay out, do you think she would have done it the same way or at all?
No, it's just not worth it. I think she would have been bummed, but just said fuck it.
If
Yeah.
Right. That would be my dog. Yeah, I of course think that was the motivation, and I think that it's an admirable one. And then we just have this big conflicting culture, which we're now currently in. So then the big question to me becomes, where do we go? Like, as a ultra community, as a bikepacking community, that's very different than it was 10 years ago. How do you keep it together? Or do you? Or does it now start to faction out?
Yeah.
Is the Tour Divide, as we know it, over?
Yeah.
What happens next year? Well,
I don't know. I've given that a lot of thought as well.
oh, let me ask you this. Did you
Yeah.
know that Lael wasn't the only one with a film crew?
I did know that, but I don't know how many people know that.
I'm
Because
not.
she was
it's
the
not
only-
my problem. I'm not
again,
giving names, right?
I don't care.
Everybody cared about Lael's.
Everyone did. Yeah. Yeah. It's sad. I mean, what do we do? Where does it go from here? My hope is that we have conversations, and my main message is that it's up to each individual person how they want to participate in that event. And you get the opportunity, if you want it, to go out there and do it your way. But there's no prizes, there's no trophies. We don't have lawyers that are going into the Tour Divide rules and dissecting every single word to
Get
see.
ready.
Yeah, yet. Well, that's what I want to prevent. Is that what we want? Is that what we want, where we have to have a lawyer draft a document that implicitly states what you can and can't do, and you have to sign it? And I mean,
Well, they already are, right? You know that, right?
Oh,
when you
no.
sign up for the Tour Divide.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's a typical waiver where you're just like, okay, I might die, but it's not your fault.
No,
kind of deal.
no. Well, I don't think so. I don't know. I haven't signed up for the Tour Divide in a while.
Yeah.
But it's like an understanding of the rules.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I don't know, whatever it says. Like, I understand, blah, 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 and you click acknowledge. And then I understand, blah, 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 and I acknowledge.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know, man.
that's a lot of organizing for an unorganized event.
Exactly.
Right?
You kind of just have. I mean, I don't know. Again, because Lael is the hot topic. Was it a support? Because the argument is like, well, her girlfriend was out there.
I think it's a detriment.
A distraction.
Huge.
That's what I think. I mean, knowing Lael, knowing how.
Which is exactly why we don't have the rule on the American Trail.
Yeah.
I don't have the rule on the 500. I just...
Yeah. Yeah, I get it, man. It's sticky, but at the end of the day, my hope is that as a community, we stop talking shit about other people. If you have an opinion, then it should be your opinion, and that's fine. But to form your opinion, you don't attack somebody else or talk negatively about somebody else. That's just intellectually lazy. All you're doing is talking shit. If you want to have an informed conversation and have an opinion, then let's do that. But you don't do it by bringing down other members of our community.
Yeah, and I think almost everybody would agree with that. I do think as I analyze the system that we have to communicate,
Yeah.
that we're set up for this, that we're really being set up, and not in conspiracy world. I mean, yes, I might be a bit of a conspiracy theorist, but the forum of Facebook, the forum of Instagram, and it almost drags people into this ability to type a little bit of the information, but not necessarily all of the information. And then somebody comments, and that's a little bit more of the information, but not all of the information. And then it contradicted this other piece of information. And so then the next person's like, oh, well, that's not really what I said. And then it just starts building on itself. And it drags, I think, very, very well-intentioned people into this forum. And before you know it, it's like totally out of control.
Right. Yeah.
With no emotion.
That's exactly how it happens.
Yeah, because, the things people would say in these chat groups, I don't think they would ever say face-to-face. I don't think they would ever say on a panel. No. I don't think...
And even in their defense, it's only a small snippet of what they really think. That opinion is backed up by other feelings or thoughts or experiences.
We all come... Right. We
exactly.
all come with that perspective bias.
As do the racers who are out there.
Right.
And so you just find yourself going in a huge circle if you want to start that process of just like going around in circles. I mean, especially if we're talking about a self-supported bike packing route with, fairly limited rules.
Right.
I mean, it's like, what are we doing?
And on that, we have to talk about the American Trail.
Yeah, we do.
So I think we had 16 start. 1 finished.
Indy, shout out,
dude. So Indy, I don't know how to describe this guy.
Give it a shot.
Most unbelievable human on the planet. Not just athletically.
Yeah.
I mean, not only does he have a 4-wheel drive Astrovan.
Yes, he does, which is awesome.
Which just makes him immediately top tier.
Yeah.
Unbelievable effort. And so, a few years ago, we had this idea to put this American Trail route together. The American Trail is nothing like the Tour Divide. Like, you got to get the two out of your head. The American Trail is over 5,000 miles, and it's mountain biking. So that seems kind of similar. The problem is the route was originally designed for motorcycles. Motorcycles and bicycles have nothing to do with each other. Because a motorcycle will drop off route, go get gas, drive through the little town, they'll shop for the wife. Like, is different. So then we put this route together. Last year, which was the second year, we had 2 people sign up. 1 started, and of course, neither made it. This year, they went out 16. And for a whole host of reasons, most of which had to do with Oklahoma, 1 finished. So,
well, they were impacted by the weather as well. That was going on
huge!
With the Tour
it was
Divide.
terrible.
It was pretty interesting to be watching the Tour Divide and the ATR at the same time. Be like,
just watching
this is
them
just
drop.
A shit show.
It was so bad. Yeah. And so the Oklahoma was underwater, and there were really no way through any of the roads in Oklahoma at that point. They were having literally to take highways and bridges and detours to get over Oklahoma. And then, of course, we had hundreds of feet on the ground of snow through Colorado, which destroyed... I mean, there was just no way that they could even get anywhere close to the route going through Colorado. 1 person pushed on, created all the detours, back and forth. I mean, I don't know how many extra miles the boy walked and rode, and still did an amazingly impressive time of like 31 days and something. We don't really count it because there were so many detours, but unbelievable time. The previous record was 34 days.
And his attitude.
Oh, the entire time.
Well, just in general, Indy, I mean, you were talking about him as a racer and a person and as a human. His attitude is what really sets him apart, and his perspective on life, whenever he's in those situations, he's just going to smile and be like, yep, this is what I signed up for.
He is one of those people that I could just sit and listen to for hours and hours and just listen to him talk. So we're talking about some neat things for the route. So the route's been cleaned up pretty substantially. Large chunks of the route that were previously rideable, like, magically became private property and were bought by, like, people with guns.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with guns, but they were a little aggressive.
When they want to keep you off, well, never mind.
It went a little sideways.
It's just a bummer.
Yeah, a few
Is
times.
what I'm saying.
But we're also very, very, very strongly considering, and I think will become a reality, a September 1 start.
For weather reasons?
Yeah.
Much like the AZT is.
Yeah. So if they leave the beach, so the beginning of the American Trail, all the racers have to camp on the beach because there's no roads for you to take to the beach. So everybody camps out there the night before, just on one of the most amazing beaches ever. And then the next morning, a boat picks all the racers up and takes all the racers to shore. When they hit shore, the race is on. It's kind of the way it works. It's like the coolest start to any race ever, I think. And pretty magical if you've ever been on the beach. And so if we start in September, all the flooding will be over. Oklahoma won't be underwater. And we won't have to detour any of Colorado, which included, like, Imogene Pass and some super high passes going through the San Juans, which we've never been able to race because even when they hit that stuff late June, they can't get over. And not because of snow. It's like ice climbing still. It's really, really dangerous.
The other thing that is nice is it's not going to conflict with the Tour Divide.
Right.
Which will be, I think, good in terms of participation and also just awareness.
Right.
I mean, everybody's so hyper-focused on the TV that, like, I had both screens open.
I know.
But I wonder how many
hard.
people do, I mean, it's
and we didn't want to conflict the first year.
Yeah.
The problem is we didn't really know how long it was going to take people.
Yeah.
I couldn't have people starting in September and finishing in January. I didn't know.
Not a lot of trial runs going on before that one.
Yeah. I mean, there was just no way. We've got locals all over the place that feed us a bunch of information. But yeah, I think that'll be exciting for the race. I think it'll pick up a bit.
Since we're here, let's throw a shout out to Indy and congrats on an amazing event. And I want to give him a personal shout out because you were just talking about him being a really solid human being. When I interviewed him, he mentioned a couple things on the podcast. One, he was going to send me a book called "Let My People Go Surfing" by Yvon Chouinard. And he also mentioned, like, I'm not very flexible, and so this yoga pod that you, like, sit on to help you, like, meditate. He mailed me both of those after the race. Like, it's like one of those things, like, someone's like, oh, I'm going to send you that book. But Indy followed through with that. Which I was like, dude, it was a little thing, but it spoke to me. It's like, okay, here's a guy who, in the course of an interview, when you're just kind of talking and throwing ideas back and forth, he remembered that he said those things and then he followed through. And I was like, wow, that's solid.
That's him.
Yeah.
That's him. I don't know how else to describe it.
So shout out to Indy. Keep being you, man. And let's talk about the 500. Anything, what are we, like 6 months away?
Yes.
The Grand Gravel 500.
The Grand Gravel 500, and it will not be in February.
Oh, when is it going to be?
Oh,
Too
man.
much rain?
Well, this year everyone froze to death.
Or, rain and freezing.
Oh, yeah. So,
just real quick, if you don't know, Billy Rice is also the race organizer for an event here that's based in College Station. It's a Grand Gravel 500. We're going to be on our 5th year.
Yeah.
5th year.
Also known as the East Texas Cemetery Tour.
Yes.
And no one knows
all the cemeteries. I don't remember, but I have the stats.
What's the number?
I'll insert it here, but I have all the stats. I went through the route and counted every single cemetery on Ride with GPS.
It's unbelievable, right?
Yeah. Actually, I'll pull it up while you're talking.
And they're all like, 150-year-old cemeteries. It's crazy.
Oh, I counted the cemeteries and the churches because that's really what it is. It's like a cemetery church tour, you know?
It's East Texas. It's creepy. Yeah. Bigfoot is
so
out there.
So when is it going to be this year?
March 19th. March 19th.
Mark your calendars.
Yeah, so same kind of deal. We'll leave at 5 o'clock in the morning. It's a 20-mile escort by Brazos County's finest, also avid cyclists. And, yeah, then the race is on. It's a 500-mile loop up to Palestine through the East Texas piney woods. Don't underestimate it.
Which direction are we going this year?
It alternates every year.
Okay.
What do we...
So we're going clockwise.
Yeah, we'll go clockwise, which I think is more fun. The start is easier when we go that way, but I don't know. I like both. I've ridden it both.
All right, I can't find.
It should be fun.
I can't find. All right, I'll have to insert that later. But I counted every single cemetery and church that we passed. So I'll throw that data out there. I was curious because you kept referring to it as like the cemetery tour, and so
I didn't know anybody had ever counted
beta. I don't know. Well, you said you like to analyze people.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't do it quite as much now because I kind of enjoy the adventure aspect of it of kind of not knowing everything, but definitely going into that event the first time I was like, okay, I want to know everything, you know, and I marked every restaurant, I went a little overboard, but I brought that was my security blanket.
If you haven't stopped at that little green restaurant, Mexican Shack outside of Huntsville, then you missed out.
Phelps?
Outside of Huntsville.
Well, Phelps is to the east of Huntsville. It's,
little green thing. It's like a little old school Mexican food. Yeah. Dude.
We went on my wife and I did an overnighter like a month ago, and we went and ate there. Magical. I intentionally made the route to like stop there at like 6 o'clock and grab dinner, and then I got some extra burritos for in the morning, and I was good to go, man.
Yeah, and we may, has not been announced, we may have a 200-mile option on this one, too.
I think that'd be a great idea. I think that
they have to act right.
Okay.
That's.
What do you mean act right?
Well,
like be nice to you and you'll do it?
No, you almost get a different crowd. Is my fear. You almost get a different crowd with a 200-mile than with a 500. In that it's it's a hospital charity event. Just making sure that racers kind of maintain the bike packing ethos, the leave no trace, the courtesy on the route.
Okay. Yeah.
That 200 miles is still epic. And if it's first time, people still need to be self-sufficient. They still need to be able to self-rescue. Or have someone who will come and pick them up if it goes bad.
Right.
As to opposed to, there's no sag wagon.
Well, past year we had a bunch of people that made their own 200-mile route.
Well, yeah, because they were all. Well, we had some that I knew would do that ahead of time, but then once that weather went gnarly, I mean, I just knew that was going to happen.
Yeah, Mother Nature, man, can't do anything about it.
No,
except for move it to March 19th.
We are. It is going to be March 19th.
I'm actually really happy to hear that.
Yeah, it'll be good.
All right, Billy, what did we not talk about?
I think we got it.
No, we talked. There's a lot we didn't talk about, but appreciate you kind of tackling the drama and offering some different perspective. I certainly don't want to fuel the flames of that at all, but conversations are good.
Totally.
We just wanted to have a conversation and throw some more information out there. And so anyway, at the end of the day, it's all about riding bikes and having a good time. And hopefully we can all, as a community, just focus on enjoying the ride, man.
Amen, right?
Preach. All right, dude.
All right, we made it all the way to the end. Thanks for sticking around. And like I said at the beginning, I'm going to start doing things a little bit different. I figure if you're still here, then you care. And I appreciate that. So, I think I'm going to call it like the after show or after party, and be a little more just kind of laid back, and tell you what's going on with Bikes or Death, maybe interviews I've got coming up, ways you can support the show. I don't know. I'm just going to kind of wing it and see how it goes. But there is a lot going on. First off, Apologies for not getting an episode out last week. I had some stuff lined up and those interviews fell through and work got real busy and I just didn't have the opportunity or the ability to make it happen. But I'm headed out to Austin tomorrow morning and I'm interviewing Vince with Chumba. And then on Friday morning, I'm interviewing the girls who are putting on the Grit Women's Mountain Bike Festival in Fayetteville, Arkansas. So I got more coming, and I'm working on lining up more even after that. In other news, thank you to Butt Crack Jenny on Instagram. I freaking love her handle. It's hilarious. So you'll probably know that I just ran a contest on Instagram to get some new artwork and designs for Bikes or Death, the brand, stickers, jerseys, socks, water bottles. I don't know. Gonna go crazy. Gonna see what we can put it on. I got new stickers that are coming in the mail today. They're already on the website. You can go now. If you go to bikesfordeath.com, you can buy Bikes or Death swag. So stickers, patches, they're all available there. And of course you can still find them on Patreon. So I've updated the tiers on Patreon to reflect, the new item. And, I haven't, if you're already a patron and you want a new sticker, I get it. Just shoot me a message on Instagram or through Patreon or whatever. I'll make a note on your account and I'm going to get new stickers shipped out to the people. Now it's a $6 sticker. So if you're a $1 a month, then after 6 months, once you put in $6, I'll send you a sticker, So, I'll just try to keep track of that and hopefully I do a good job. If I miss one, just shoot me a message. It's just me. I don't have any assistants. So I'm trying to juggle my real job, being a father and a husband and also producing a podcast. So, shit happens. Things fall through the crack. Definitely not intentional. I'm trying to run this as well and professionally as I can. But at the same time, I have to be honest about the fact that, this is not my main job. This is not my real gig. It's a side hustle. It's a passion project. It's something I do for fun. So I guess in that vein, I kind of wanted to, give y'all an idea of what your money and contributions go to when you support the show. And I'm going to get into all the ways you can support it. One of them, the new one, is through just buying merchandise and wearing cool gear and representing that Bikes or Death lifestyle. But yeah, so ultimately, I look at everything from a time perspective. In my opinion, time is the most valuable asset or resource that we have. Our health, your heart goes bad, they'll give you a new heart. If you break your arm, you fix it. Health is important, but time is the one thing that you never get back unless they figure out anti-aging, in which case all this is moot. So with that said, I have to, just putting it simply, the more money I make on Bikes or Death, the more time I can devote to it. What does that mean? Things that I would like to do would be a Bikes or Death podcast tour where maybe once every 4 months or even once a month, depending on how much money I can make doing it, I'll go on a podcast tour and I'll just knock out, several, like I'll go West Coast, East Coast. I'll go wherever and just ride bikes and talk to people, I think it'd be really neat to, go on a trip with somebody and then, experience who they are, hang out with them, get to know them, and then record a podcast. I think that would be like the next level. And, so, just in general, the more I make on the podcast, the more time I'm going to be able to justify spending on it. It's that simple. And I've got some good ideas on how to make that happen. So the big decision to make in my shoes is go with advertisers, go with a sponsor, or just keep it me and allow the listeners, allow y'all to support the show and keep it free from any outside influence. I mean, right now, the people I talk to are the people that I want to talk to. They're people I find interesting. I talk to them about the things that I want to talk. I have the opinions that I want to have. You get the idea. And unless I have the just really good partners, my concern is that they're going to want to have some influence over the show. And I already have a boss right now. I'm not looking for more bosses. I'm in a neat position now where I feel like I have a job. It provides financially for the family, and the podcast is just extra. So I figure, what the heck, I'm in a position where I can kind of do whatever I want, and I can roll the dice. And if it works, great. And if it doesn't, well, that's okay too. I have a job. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of where I'm at. And that's not to say I won't ever get an advertiser or a sponsor. It kind of just depends, I don't have a crystal ball, so time will tell. But I can tell you this: if I do get a sponsor, it will be somebody who I would want to partner with, and I think would make sense. I think, I'm not going to throw anyone out there right now. I've already talked to people. People are interested in being partnered up with the show. But right now, like I said, I'm just focused on, I just want to grow it. I want to see what it can be. And this is how we're going to do it. All right. So first off, merchandise. I'm going to ramp up on shirts, hats, socks, stickers, patches, all that fun stuff. And really like try to grow the Bikes or Death brand. I bought the trademark. So I own Bikes or Death, the trademark. And I think that could be a really neat way to generate some income and really spread that Bikes or Death message. Second, Patreon. It's obvious, but it's really where you see the value in what I'm doing. You understand that it takes me 30 to 40 hours to produce every single episode, and you value the fact that not only am I spending my time, my energy, and my money to produce a show, but you're getting it for free. No advertisers, nothing, just me talking. So if you really see that value, then the Patreon makes sense. And I don't care if it's $1. I've said this before. I don't care if it's $1, $5, or $10. I mean, obviously 10's better, but I don't care. If everybody that listens to this show did $1 a month, I could just about make this my full-time gig. You know what I'm saying? So like, I don't need a lot from a few people. I need a little bit from a lot of people, and it's mo better for everybody. The other one that I really like, I think is a great way to support the show, is if you go to bikesorddeath.com, you'll find an Amazon affiliate link. All you got to do is click it, bookmark it on your desktop or your laptop or whatever. And every single time you buy something using that Amazon link, I'm going to get a little bit of cut from that. And I tell you right now, I mean, it's pretty sweet. Like, people are already using it. I've made $33.67. 21 orders, total of $690 has been ordered, and I get $33.67. And I think that's sweet, because like, you were going to buy that anyway. You were going to go through Amazon, and I'm just the guy that sent you the link, and I get a little bit. So, I mean, that's kind of like a no-brainer, Another way, okay, this next one is like the big crazy idea that I just had, and it's not even a fully formulated idea yet, but I know enough about it to just go ahead and roll with it. All right, so in my real life, I'm a real estate agent, and much like the Amazon affiliate link where I'm referring you to Amazon, in real estate, it's very common to refer a client or somebody that you know to another agent. So I'm going to start the Bikes or Death real estate referral program. Why not? I'll tell you why, or why I should, is I'm already a real estate. I'm already doing that. And if you are looking to buy or sell a home, literally anywhere in the world, all you have to do, I'm going to set up a form a form on my website where you can enter in all this information. But for now, like I said, I just had this idea. So for now, if you are going to be buying or selling a home in the near future, shoot me an email at bikes@bikesfordeath.com, and I'll kind of walk you through the process. And even if like you already know what agent you want to use, and just say, hey, Patrick, we're moving to Atlanta, Georgia, and we really like this agent. We want to use her. I'll reach out to her. I'll let them know that I got a referral for them. They'll pay me a small part of the commissions. Again, it doesn't cost you anything. I'm just referring you to somebody else. And I think, honestly, like, I thought about it, I was like, man, I hope this doesn't come across as shady. But if you think about it, it's the same thing that you do with like an Amazon affiliate link, or, you know, if you go to another podcast and there's a promo code to get 15% off of MeUndies or whatever. Well, if you think about that, MeUndies is paying for that advertisement. So that costs them money. Plus they're giving a discount for the referral. So that costs them money. So it's the same thing. It's just that I think most people probably aren't aware of real estate referrals, but it's very common. And in fact, some agents, they actually have a thing called a referral only agent, which you can't even practice real estate. The only thing you're allowed to do is refer them. So it's a really common practice, and it would be a really good way for me to generate some pretty good income through listeners who are looking to buy or sell anyway. And again, one step closer to the dream job of podcasting full time. And that would be the goal, is is driving around in my van interviewing people, right, riding bikes. I wanted to hop back to the new merchandise real quick. Again, I want to give a huge thank you to Butt Crack Jenny on Instagram. She was freaking awesome. I loved her logo. I thought it was like fun, but had the death and the bikes, and I mean, it all kind of like made sense, at least in my mind. And then like afterwards, I was asking her to tweak stuff and try different stuff and give me, you know, like I'm not very creative. I can't picture things. And so I was a huge pain in the ass. So like, hey, can you do these? And blah, blah. Anyway, she was like so nice, and I just felt like guilty because I knew she wasn't getting paid. But I mean, she was like super happy to do it, and it was her way to support the show, and I get it. And I'm grateful. I'm super grateful. And I asked her if there's anything I could do for her, give her a shout on the show. And she said yes. Her and her husband organize a couple events in Michigan. So if you're in that area, around that area, they organize the Michigan Gravel Race Series and the Fargo Sub 48. And anyway, if you just want to, I mean, they're easy to find. Google it. It's either the Michigan Gravel Ride Series or Fargo Sub 48. And yeah, if you're in the area, go support them, because they're supporting me. And that's the way the world works. That's the way the world should work. All right. Well, listen, I think that's good. I'm sure I forgot something, and I'll think about it whenever I'm editing it, and I'll think about going back and adding it, and I'll be too lazy, and I'll try to do it the next time. But let me leave you with this. The next time you're in front of your computer and somebody posts something on Facebook that you disagree with, you start typing, just walk away. Walk away and go ride your damn bike. Shut the fuck up and be happy.